Welcome back to another episode of Claiming Your Creative Voice.
Yay!
With a little side of woo. I'm Lindsay. This is my good friend
Leslie!
and we're thrilled to be here with you. Also, how
Cauldron mugs.
80s-tastic is my hair today.
So 80s.
I feel like I'm channeling my big sister when she was a
love
teenager
it.
in the 80s.
I love
I
it.
walked out of the house today and I was like, I feel like Christy.
Where are your neon bracelets?
I
By the
know.
way, woo-woo, witchy cauldron mug. Just saying.
Yes.
Yes.
We don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk.
We drink out of cauldrons.
We just...
We won't tell you what's in here. Eye of Newt. I don't know, like...
I am Newt.
Sweat of a badger.
Oh
I mean, I don't
God.
know.
Sweat of a badger. Yes. Well,
anyway, we're happy to be here with
happy,
you.
very happy to be
Yeah,
here.
it's Stillhouse Herbals Apothecary in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes.
Enjoying this beautiful tea room as always.
Yes.
And just having some fun life chats and supporting women and
absolutely and
connection
making
and creativity and all that good
jokes
stuff.
about how witchy we are.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
But today we wanted to talk about something that's very near and dear to our hearts, something that we both have really had. I feel like we've both had our own unique journeys and experiences with this. You being an actual professor at a university currently, both of us having gone to school and college. You finished, I didn't.
The whole academic route.
The academic route, and then my work, and I'm sure you've had some as well, but maybe, I don't know, I'm excited to hear your story, but I guess I was going to say I've had a lot of clients that are really caught in that in-between place of feeling forced to go to school by their parents, not really wanting to, or not knowing if they should, or, which is the better, more interesting version, those that are going, but you can sense that they
don't want to be there.
Intuitively, don't want to be there, and they intuitively are thinking, I don't really know if I need to be doing this.
Right, and they're really not flourishing, and they'd rather be out in it.
Right.
Like, just getting all in it.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
getting that feet on the ground kind of, real experience.
Yeah.
So it's a valid conversation.
It really is, and we wanted to explore this deeper for you all, especially for those of you that might be in that season of trying to determine whether or not this is the right avenue for you, and also giving you some insight, and especially because Leslie's on faculty at a university, so giving some insight and also helping you determine why an academic route may or may not be the right route for you if you want to be an artist.
Right,
So
for sure. And I've seen a lot of my students that I have at the university where I teach feel, gosh, what are all these extemporaneous courses for? Like, I'm just...
Like algebra?
Yeah, when you're a music, major, you don't really have to jump into math at every school. But even the things like your speech class or your music history class or things that you just know you're really never going to use necessarily,
Right.
but they're frying your brain and using up so much of your time for the huge tests and the assignments and the projects.
Because you've got to get those grades.
You've got it, and the pressure might be there from your parents to keep your scholarship, for your grades.
Yeah.
But the
really
anxiety,
weighty
it
energy.
can be weighty, and the anxiety that I see a lot of my students have around this sort of thing is that they want to be out gigging. They want to be out doing some demo work.
Yeah.
They want to be out networking and meeting people and
Getting their hands dirty.
Yeah,
feet
getting
on the
in
ground.
it. Getting in it. But they literally don't have the time.
No.
And
or maybe even the emotional bandwidth. After all of the tests, like you mentioned, that was exhausting for me.
It's exhausting to be, especially a music student in a conservatory type program.
Oh,
it asks
they're
so
demanding.
much of you. There's
Yeah.
no time. I mean, I really feel for my students who have to work and do this. I mean, because that is really hard. So, and a lot of times, it depends on how things are set up, mind you. But a lot of times you might have to wait quite a while before you're really getting into that performance aspect, of your degree.
Yeah.
And so, the question is, so say you're in high school, you are musically inclined, you love it. It's what you want to build your life around being an artist, or being a music maker, do you have to go to college for that? Do you have to get a degree for that? And I mean, the answer is no.
No.
Hell no.
Hell no.
But there's a lot of sides though, and so we want to present just kind of looking at the different sides, because it's not hell no for everyone.
Yeah.
So we had talked about,
Right.
well, okay, what kind of person would, for instance, going to college and getting a, let's just say, vocal performance degree, what kind of person would flourish in that sort of environment, and might it be just a fabulous choice for? And
Right.
and of course there's a lot of reasons behind that. One might be their parents can completely foot the bill easily, or they're on full scholarship,
Right.
so they're not going to come out in debt.
Right.
Right? And because you're coming out with a performance degree in, if you're coming out with a performance degree in debt with no guaranteed sort of work, but
It's
trying,
a terrible situation to be in to start your adult life.
that's hard. That's really hard.
Yeah.
But if you are someone who flourishes with the structure
Right.
that school can give you, and you're pretty organized, and you can really, you're
And
more of that-
academics also energize you.
they
know?
can.
There are
absolutely
people
can.
that are very, they have a little bit of that left brain, right brain thing going on, and the academic piece is an energizing component for them.
Absolutely, that is a type of person. It conversely, another type of person could get really downtrodden
Yes.
by all of what's expected, and the the time management, the organization, and the constant projects and grading and everything that's due.
Especially for subjects that you don't care about.
Exactly.
That's the difficult piece of college.
There's an amount of pressure that a lot of people don't do well with.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so back to that type of person who I think, can do well with that. Of course, there's the social aspect as well, but now the social aspect is crazy though during COVID. I mean, it's like, you can't really argue for that being, one of the reasons you want to go to college necessarily anymore.
Yeah.
Wow. But the type of person though that is just so already in their art and so wanting to deepen the learning of the actual art without dealing with all the extemporaneous courses that
Right.
they deem unnecessary perhaps,
right.
well, it would be just as valid, in my opinion, especially for that type of person, to network and just get a great private, teacher.
Yeah.
Get and if you want to write or arrange, get a theory teacher, get a composition teacher.
Yep.
Just a private teacher. Get a voice teacher if you're a singer, or if you play an instrument, start taking piano lessons, or do that anyway if you're a vocalist. I mean, just
Right.
Find your people and start networking and get yourself into doing demo sessions and meeting with other writers, or join a choir. I mean, there's just so many
Starting to
things you
book
could
gigs,
do.
all of
Yeah,
those things.
there's so many things you can do in your community.
Right.
And if you're in a super small community, then you probably do need to move.
Yeah.
I mean, you could definitely, if you found a really, really great teacher or teachers to study privately with, it doesn't matter where you are, to be honest. You could be in, I don't know, Bumbleshit, Idaho. And
I love that town. I'm from Bumbleshit, Idaho.
I mean, I don't know. Nothing against Idaho. It's beautiful there, I hear. But it doesn't matter if you found a fantastic teacher to study with there. You could get a lot done.
Totally.
As, say, a vocalist or a violinist or what have you, or a painter. You could get a lot done, and you could start to really grow.
Yeah.
And then, at some point, if you're wanting to get into a community, then, moving to a place that is known, like Nashville, of course, is known for its singer-songwriters and its music industry. So a lot of people do move here knowing that just by networking, they're going to start to get into, hopefully some studio work, and then just starting to meet people. But, some people come to college here.
Right.
For the same reason, so that it makes their parents happy.
Right.
They're getting that degree for their parents. That makes their parents happy, but they're already in Nashville, so hopefully they're starting to maybe get a few gigs. I definitely have some students that's the case.
Yeah.
They're doing their degree, their parents are happy, their parents are footing the bill, and they don't have a ton of time, but they're meeting people, they're taking meetings at some record companies perhaps, gigging a little bit on the side. So that them already being in Nashville while doing the degree, I see how that's beneficial.
Totally.
That makes sense. Mind you, they don't have a ton of time and energy.
Right.
And that's one of the arguments against it.
Can I take this to a brief sidebar?
I want you to. I was just wrapping.
No, I love where you were wrapping because it triggered a thought. And I was listening to a podcast where Bruce Lipton was being interviewed.
Oh yeah,
this
I like
morning.
him.
The man's freaking brilliant. Y'all need to go Google you some Bruce Lipton if you have not. Yeah. He's not a physicist. I think he started out as a biologist, but his specialty is really in, like, I think he was doing stem cell stuff for a while and epigenetics, and he has a book called The Biology of Belief. And so one of the things he was breaking down in this podcast was how our brains are really computers. And at the end of the day, like he said, in the third trimester, when a baby is in utero, that's when the brain starts to boot up. It's kind of like the computer booting up. And he said, but what happens is, and you know, maybe many of you have heard this already, but I always love hearing other people re-articulate these ideas because I'm like, ooh, it's like a fractal. Like you can hold it up in the light and you experience something new every time you hear someone else talk about the same kind of topic.
Yeah, hits you differently.
And so it totally hit me today. And he was talking about how in the first 7 years of life, our computer is programmed. And we're being programmed by our parents and our siblings and our community around us, the behaviors, because we don't have the higher states of consciousness yet. We're basically like, first we're in theta, which is sleeping, brainwave state. And then it goes to, I think, is it delta? And you're in like a delta. That's why he's like, that's why a child will be riding a broom and the mother will say, hand me the broom. And the child doesn't understand because it's not a broom. He's riding a horse.
Exactly.
Because they're in that delta imaginative state.
Oh,
as an adult, your delta state is your meditative state, right? Mm-hmm. And so you actually don't even get into a more higher state of consciousness until you're 12. And that's when you go into beta, or it's either alpha or beta, I don't remember. But either way, the point of what I'm breaking down for you here is the fact that he was like, everybody is living out their programming. When you're not consciously aware of what you have been programmed with, you think that
it's yours.
It's yours.
You think it belongs to you.
And he said, so it's funny that people like get really irritated when someone tells them don't act like your father or whatever. And he's like, but you've been programmed to act like your father because in those first 7 years of life, when your computer is being programmed, you are observing all the behaviors of the people around you, namely your caretakers. And so it's just an interest. I'm bringing this back around, I promise. It's interesting as it pertains to the topic of college because so many people are still living out what their parents want them to. It's not their wish, it's not their desire, it's not what they want for their life. They're just operating out of a subconscious computer program, essentially, that goes, this is what we do in this family. We all go to university in this family. Yes. This is what we do. I get an education. And it can be hard when you're 17, 18, 19, and you're still living in your parents' home.
To go against that in any way.
Against it. Yeah, because you're still in a lot of ways often very economically reliant upon your parents.
Yeah.
But I'm saying all of this to encourage you guys that if you are considering going one way or the other, to be aware of the fact that you are likely making decisions out of the programming that happened for you between the ages of 0 and 7.
Right.
So if you're having a gut resistance to college, I would lean into that. If you are going to do the college thing, then get a business degree. And I try to tell that to parents because I'm like, the reality is, even if you're an artist that gets signed to a record label, you're still an entrepreneur.
Yeah. You should know the business.
You still need to understand
know how to take care of yourself in that way.
And it's not even like needing to know the music business in particular. You need to understand business and how business operates, because most artists in this day and age will remain independent. I was sitting with a really good friend of mine. He's the lead singer of a very, very famous CCM band, actually, and we were joking because he was on the label that I had worked for a while. And I was saying, I've never met an artist who has had a label experience that can say, well, that was a great experience. That worked out well. I'm like, none. No artist that I ever know were like, my label years were the best years of my life. And he was laughing. He's like, it's true. None of them have a great experience. So like, label or no, because of the shifts in the tech revolution and the things that are happening for making how many opportunities are available for artists these days, more artists are going to choose to remain independent. And so if you're going to choose to remain independent, you need to understand how business works. And so if you're going to go to college, get the teachers, like Leslie said, still continue to practice your craft, but dude, go to freaking cheap school and just get a business degree. Pass, you know what I mean? Just learn what you need to know. I know this is maybe a really fringe way of doing it. I love that I'm like slaying you right now.
Love it.
But it's just like, just learn what you need to know.
Right.
And then really invest in the places that you want to explore, your voice, your writing.
Exactly. And we haven't even talked about internships. I mean, my gosh. I mean, you can start getting those in high school.
Yeah.
You can start getting those internships and apprenticing in high school. Yep. And that could lead you right into the business.
Right.
Depending on where you're living. But I mean, that's another super viable route.
Yep.
I mean, my gosh, without spending so much money on college.
Yeah.
No, there are different, just
so
creative things to put together.
And I'll tell you the story that I was talking to an artist and her mom the other day. And this is an artist that's a graduate of Berkeley.
Okay.
Right? Like, parents have been supporting. I think she comes from a family that has some wealth, and they've been funding a lot of her artistry, which is so awesome when artists have those types of resources. Like, I'm so blessed. I didn't have that, So, like, I'm always just like, you don't understand how blessed you are, that you have a family that is not only supportive emotionally, but is willing to, like, bankroll this for you.
For them.
I mean, amazing, right? And so she was, and again, like, this is a graduate of Berkeley, one of the most prestigious music schools in our country. And I was like asking her something about, what are her plans to make this a viable career option? Because at this point she had released some music. They didn't really love the launch that they had. They'd worked with a company that did not deliver results. And they were kind of disappointed and trying to figure out what the next step was. And I'm like, what's your plan? How are you going to grow your audience and then monetize this audience so you can continue to generate income for yourself and continue to do your art? And she was like, well, I just know that if I get in front of enough people, the music will take because I know we have a hit. And I was like, oh, sweet girl. Like, I love you so much, but like, it's profound to me. These people that come out of these prestigious music schools, and that's as far as they've gone in their mind
for sure.
in terms of how to actually make what they want to do a viable option.
For sure. You can
to
get
build a
out
life
with
around.
a degree and you could be singing your ass off or playing your ass off, painting your ass off, dancing your ass off, whatever, acting, whatever, and not have a friggin' clue of what's the next step? What are the next steps?
Yeah.
How am I going to do this?
Which is why I think I'm like, if you're going to get a degree and you want to be an artist and your parents are you're going to college, then I'm getting a business degree.
Yeah.
And I'm going to learn how to run a business so I can understand the mechanics of how to market a product and sell it effectively and understand my profit and loss and understand how to grow, because again, like, we all have the tools of social media, so we all have the ability to market a product, whether that's music or a painting or choreography, like whatever. We all have that same access now.
I think that what it all boils down to is be respectful of your parents and all of that,
For sure.
but question really cultivate not only curiosity but self-awareness. Well, is it right for me to go to college? Get a legal pad out, do pros and cons, start to just really get clear on what it is you're looking to accomplish and what feels good for you. Start to cultivate that self-awareness separately from the relationship with your parents and what they may be wanting for you. respectfully so, it's okay to question things. So certainly we are not saying that, being a music major, for instance, or a music business major, or a dance major, or what have you, is like no, there's like no value in that.
Yeah.
We're not saying that, but question if it's right for you.
Right. And question, like, what is going to happen on the other side of those 4 years? I get the prestigiousness factor. Like, getting accepted into Juilliard as a dancer is probably a huge, like, amazing feeling. And you really need to do a lot of, like, your research on what types of opportunities are available to you and why you would be paying more for the name. What is that at the end of those 4 years going to ultimately do for you? Because I guarantee you could walk into any audition for any Broadway show and line up a room full of dancers, and they're going to be, no one's going to go, oh, you were the Juilliard dancer, you get the gig.
You're in. I
right?
choose you.
So, like, you do want to be really thoughtful about, if I'm going to pay extra, just like anything in life, if I'm going to pay extra for a brand name, I want to understand what additional value that's going to add to my life. Now, again, if your parents are rolling in it and they're going to bankroll a Juilliard degree for you, like, be thankful. That's awesome. Like, you get to have an experience that not many get to have.
So true.
But on the other hand, if you're doing it and you're leasing your life out for 4 years, taking out loans to pay for an expensive degree, when you just want to go, do something like dance and be in Broadway shows or whatever, for example, you can audition your way into Broadway shows without getting the Juilliard degree. And same with artists and getting music degrees and things like that. You really want to weigh the cost benefit, because there's nothing worse than getting a degree in music business. And my husband has worked for some of the biggest management firms in this country, not in this country. Well, actually, probably that's true, but definitely in Nashville. And there were people on that staff that were fresh out of Belmont music business program that didn't know what Patreon was, and that couldn't figure out how to get the artists on their roster, how to turn a buck. Like, it was profound. These young 20-something dudes that you would think, oh, they've got all this savvy on the tech space and social media and how to really do this. They've got these music degrees from this prestigious university. They didn't know shit. They could probably tell you a little bit about copyright law, but it was profound. So that's saying you want to understand that at the end of the 4 years, there's nothing worse than not having the street smarts or the skill
set
to actually be able to produce a healthy income for yourself, and also be in debt for 4 years worth of a really expensive school.
Right. And there's that other piece
that's crushing.
It is crushing.
I have $100,000 worth of debt, and I have no idea how to make myself. And then the thing is, too, is these companies are paying kids like $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
You're never going to pay that back on a $25,000 a year salary.
Yeah. And speaking of crushing, another thing that begs mentioning is that there is an experience that happens sometimes, not all the time. So again, know thyself, start to question, cultivate curiosity about how you tick, what it is you want.
Yeah.
But there's this piece where when you make music, you go for that academic, really high pressure sort of situation where sure, your skill set is growing, but there's a lot of pressure and a lot of times anxiety along with that. And then you're going to hopefully make that your living as well. Well, that's your own pressure there as well with trying to pay your bills. So there's this thing where you take something you loved, or at least you thought you loved, and you twist it. You twist it and you're like, oh, now it's my major.
Right.
Now it's my major in college, and it's my way of making the grades and doing the things. And then you get out of college, oh, now it's my job, and now I have to make a certain amount of money. And so along the way, I'm speaking from experience, but also I've seen this happen with a lot of people that I know, or a lot of students that have worked with me, losing the joy.
Yeah.
Like, why the hell did I do this again? Like, didn't I used to love this? Didn't I used to love to sing? Didn't I used to love to play? Didn't I used
Yep.
to love to dance? And so, it's possible that you could keep an amount of joy by not making it the sole focus
Right.
of schooling / jobbing. What if you got that business degree and
Yeah.
that helped you, pay your bills and make a decent living? And what if you're a singer, you were, cutting the album, doing the demos, singing with a fantastic choir, for instance, doing some theater productions,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever, and maybe there'd be a little more joy and juiciness left
Yeah.
if you didn't just make it everything.
Yeah, it's so good.
I have 2 degrees in vocal performance, and I'm grateful. I worked my ass off, but I definitely lost some joy along the way.
Yeah.
Just working so hard at those
And it
degrees.
really, at the end of the day, like, did you need them? Like, I was reading, so the director of the school where our kids went, where we met, she has a blog. I don't know if you've ever read it.
I have.
I was reading a little bit of it the other night, and she's really funny.
Yeah, she is.
And she was saying, like, she runs a part-time homeschool program. She's like, I opened a school for families who want to homeschool their kids but don't actually want the responsibility of educating their child.
And definitely don't want to be home with them 24/7.
But she was like, it's kind of okay if your kid is 10 and still can't read because, Ringo Starr, for example, like, he dropped out of school probably right around junior high because he was so far behind that he couldn't even catch up. And yet he's now he's a drummer that's worth $300 million today.
Right.
And so it just goes to show, like, we laugh at that because it's
Right.
like hysterical, but at the same time, it's
But there's so much truth. I mean, you don't have to be for instance, a mathematician to paint your next masterpiece. I mean,
Right.
whatever, what
Exactly.
I mean?
Exactly. And I think that happens a lot with just the way our academic structure is in this country for the artistic folks among us. Like, we spend a lot of time believing or thinking that we are not brilliant, when really what we need to be doing is just focusing in the areas that we are brilliant in. We don't necessarily need to be the mathematician to make the painting.
Right. Know thyself. Like,
Yeah.
really start to tap into, why am I here? Why am I here? What am I here to do?
Yeah.
And a piece also that I wanted to point out about taking that road to, in academia, going into a conservatory or a college to study your art, again, could be great for certain people. Absolutely is great for certain people. But one thing I'd like to point out that I've lived myself, having 2 degrees in music, 2 degrees in vocal performance, and just the pressure that, you're constantly having to hit those, those spots and feeling like there's some anxiety and the pressure can suck the joy out of it. So taking what we love or what we think we love
And what brings us joy.
Yeah. Kind of can suck the joy out of it. It kind of twists it and makes it like this thing where, well, this is what I do now. This is what I do for school, or this is what I do for my living.
Yeah, it's the thing, I think you had said at one point, it's the thing that, like, gets me my grades, and then it's the thing that gets me the money.
Right. And so then it becomes less about the experience and the expression of you. And so, that just harkens back to you saying, for instance, get a business degree. And and you could get a business degree or something to pay your bills, and you could very easily, go sing in a choir, go dance in a show, go, and do some more things for joy and for the sake of doing it, because you can't not do it because you're a creator, because that's who you are, that's what you're here to do, and maybe still having some joy in it. So I think that there's just many paths to get you to your throne. There's just many different paths.
I love that.
And so just the idea is to just question, what is my truth? What kind of life do I want to have? And start to understand what belongs to you as far as, not feeling or not taking the pressures you might feel externally from family and friends or what have you, society, what have you, not taking those pressures on and calling them your own.
Yeah.
They don't have to be your own.
Absolutely not.
Just decide, what's right for you and start to question and start to really cultivate self-awareness. And so we're just saying there's many ways of getting there. So just something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, I think we will leave everybody with a cup of question everything and choose your own path.
I love it. We'll even have a cauldron full. How's that?
Cheers.
Cheers.